You're too sensitive. How many times have you heard that? How many times have you said it yourself? We live in a culture that treats sensitivity like a character flaw, like a weakness, but y'all, we have it completely backwards. The problem isn't that we're feeling too much. It's that we've never been taught how to stay grounded and centered while feeling these big things that are totally normal and natural to feel. If you haven't noticed, the world is on fire. It is actually kind of crazy to not be feeling things. But before I go on that rant, let's talk about today's episode, where we're breaking down why sensitivity, somatic, emotional, and interpersonal sensitivity is not a weakness, but actually the foundation of every good relationship you'll ever have, including the one with yourself. But here's the thing. There's a big difference between being sensitive and being reactive. So, when we build the capacity to sit with big sensations and feelings without getting swept away by them, that's when our sensitivity truly becomes a superpower. So, Anna and I are going to dive into exactly how to cultivate this kind of fine tuned sensitivity that helps you notice things like when your body is carrying tension that needs to be released for the sake of your health, or when a close friend or family member needs support and love versus needing space, or how that thing that your partner does with the intention of loving you actually has the opposite effect. All without the sensation getting so intense that you have to have a full meltdown about it. And you're not going to want to miss the end where Anna breaks down how to tell when you're building capacity to hold more sensation versus pushing yourself in a way that will actually make you more reactive and less grounded in the future. This is the nervous system gold that I wish we all understood, because this is the key to becoming the grounded, empowered, loving beings that we know we can be. I'm Leona Waller. You're about to meet my lovely co-host, Anna Ali. Don't forget to like and subscribe wherever you're watching, and let's get into it. Everybody, look at Anna's cool van.
Yay!
Anna's van is epic. It's not finished yet,
Yeah.
so she's embarrassed of showing it off, but I'm going to show it off for her.
I'm feeling a little uncomfortable right now.
Okay, getting to the podcast. So, the topic we have
Mm.
for you guys today is a topic that I tried to record entirely on my own and realized that there was no possible way I could do this without Anna's expertise. And it started as an internal rant about what everybody gets wrong about sensitivity and how the word being sensitive is an insult. Because I was trying to think of, like, a starting place, like, if someone was like, "Hey, Leona and Anna, like, where would you start in all this somatic work?" I was like, "Honestly, building your sensitivity."
Yeah.
But as a culture, that's become a bad word.
Yes,
Um,
and so let's reclaim that today.
so, like, we are gonna break down we have, like, kind of broken down sensitivity into somatic, emotional, and interpersonal sensitivity, and we're gonna just give some examples about that, and how really the problem isn't that you're too sensitive. Being sensitive is incredibly important for every relationship you have with yourself, with the parts of yourself, and with others, but the problem is when you have sensations that you feel like you need to fight, flight, or flee from. That doesn't make sense. You need to fight or flee from. I got it there eventually.
And I think the word I heard you use before too is like, I need to fix this in some way. This needs
Yes,
to be and so, like, what that makes me think of is, how can I sit and be with this emotion, even if it's big, without wanting to fix it in some way, without wanting to run away from it or fight it in some way.
totally.
That is that right?
Yeah. So Anna, how would you define sensitivity and specifically versus reactivity?
Yeah, okay. Let me think. So, sensitivity from that somatic perspective, at the 5 senses, and how I'd say, like, I'm thinking of, like, when you're tuning a radio, like, how sensitive that tuner is to these different channels that are coming in, um, and so To add reactivity of a sensitive system, I can pick up on seemingly, like, small inputs
Mm,
and notice them and receive them and be aware of them.
mhm,
Reactivity would be, for example, if there was, like, say, a loud bang and it made me jump, that would be reactive, right?
mhm,
And so I could also be, reactive to seemingly, quote, unquote, "small things" as well.
mhm.
System doesn't have the capacity to hold that level of input, and so it reacts to it, losing its ground in its center. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yeah, and that's, like, I think so when we say, like, "You're so sensitive," and, like, "You're being so dramatic," what we're really referring to is somebody's level of reactivity, and not that we should ever shame anyone for being reactive, like, it's usually because their nervous system is overloaded, and I'm sure we'll talk a lot about that, but the problem isn't that we're too sensitive. Like, the ability to notice these fine-tuned sensations on a somatic level, like, your 5 senses, the ability to be sensitive to your emotional body and what you're feeling, and the ability to be sensitive to what the people around you are experiencing and feeling, like, is the underpinning of living a good life. That's not too much to say, I don't think.
It's not. That is it in so many ways.
Yeah, so, like, Anna, what are your examples because you're our somatics practitioner. I'm not gonna call you a somatics expert. I've learned she's working her way up. But as, like, a somatic practitioner, what would you say about somatic sensitivity and why it's so important?
Hmm. What would I say about somatic sensitivity and why it's so important? I mean, I think first, in order to be able to say, "I'm safe, I
Mhm,
belong, I am worthy,"
mhm,
we need to have a level of awareness and connection to what's going on inside of us and
mhm,
what's going on around us. And
mhm,
from all those different inputs, we're able to then establish safety, belonging, and dignity.
mhm,
So, first and foremost, we need to have a sensitivity to those things. And so, the opposite of that would be a numbness, cutting ourselves off,
mhm,
not being able to feel those inputs on an intense level or on like a micro level.
mhm,
And so, yeah, first and foremost, it's essential to have a sense of self, of being able to interact with this world. To be alive, we must be sensitive to internal and external outputs.
yeah. And that, like, numbness, like, I think we have confused the feeling of being able to, like, um it's a beautiful thing to have the capacity to, like, experience sensational intensity and not get totally knocked off our feet by it, but, like, we've just traded that in for numbness, and when you are numb, you, 1, can't experience, like, the good things of life, but you also can't experience where you are right now in order to, like, course correct to where you wanna be, and one day when we get to our idiopathic disease episode, it will happen. Who knows when, honestly.
We'll get
The
there.
universe is playing with us on that one. Um, fully lost my train of thought. Okay, where was I going? Oh, but, like, idiopathic disease, like, if you aren't aware that you are clenching your gut all the time because you don't have a sensitivity to that, you will never know that, like, your gut issues are caused by stress.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And this
I think that's such a clear example. That is such a clear example. I also what something you were just saying made me think that I wanna drop in as well is, um, making sure that as you're listening to us talk about these things, that we're not categorizing as any of these responses as, like, good or bad.
Mhm,
Um, Experience numbness, it an adaptive strategy to help an overwhelmed system. And so when my
Mm,
body numbs out, when anyone's body numbs out, it's because their system was overwhelmed. And the best thing for that system to then do was to numb out so that that overwhelm wouldn't become even worse.
mhm.
And so it's not that numbness is bad or sensitivity is good or like any like, like take this moralistic stuff and throw it out the window and recognize like our body is wise and our body is constantly responding in the best way it knows possible to difficult situations, to
Mhm.
threatening or dangerous situations. And so if you are going through a period of numbness, it's an indicator that your system was overwhelmed and this is the best strategy you have at the moment. And there are things that you can then do to come out of that numbness back into sensitivity and then to grow that capacity to be able to hold all those sensations again without losing your sense of center or ground.
Totally. Thanks for clarifying that because I think there's numbness that is like a physiological response, and then there's like top-down numbing or, like dampening of your
Yeah.
sensitivity.
Forcing yourself to not feel or not respond or not have.
Ignoring, repressing, maybe those are better words. Avoiding, like, do it just I think ignoring and repressing are good words for it, like, "No, everything's fine. It's fine." And that denial, um, I mean, just creates cognitive dissonance, like, inside of your own body, first of all, and it's, like, ignoring valuable information that, like, is affecting your physical and emotional well-being constantly, and it's just there's a way, and we're gonna get there, like, to have sensitivity and capacity so that you can stay grounded and centered, but you can feel everything too. Like, you don't have it's not a choice between feeling and unfeeling. You are feeling it all, but you don't get knocked off your feet by it.
Yeah, that's a great visual definition of
I'm glad
yes.
we sorted it
I
out on numbness because that yeah, there's numbness that's, like, not a choice, and then there's top-down repression. Um, and just so this is woven in, like, so we've been talking about like sensational sensitivity, so like very physical, and then there's also emotional sensitivity. So besides knowing like, oh, I'm clenching my stomach, which is like sensational sensitivity, there's emotional sensitivity of like, oh, I'm kind of anxious right now. I'm kind of sad. Um I'm feeling a little um light and breezy. Like there's all of these different emotional textures and sensitivity to that. And then there's a third sensitivity that I like to call interpersonal, which is knowing what the people around you are feeling. And that can be um, sensational or emotional, but just having that, being able to turn that sensitivity outward, which I think is where really our relationships can blossom when we are able to have a sense of what the people around us are feeling without them needing to literally sit us down and tell us.
Yeah. Yeah, like, the word that's coming to mind there is something we see a lot, I think, right now is attunement. Being able
Yeah.
to attune to the people around us, being able to pick up on where someone's at. And it's not like we're saying, like, you need to be able to read people's minds, right? No.
No.
But like, you go up to someone and you look at them and you feel them and like, "Oh, this person I think is really sad right now." Or
Yeah.
like, "Oh, this person is jubilant," and, like, I can see them almost wanting to jump out of their pants right now. They're so excited, but they're trying to contain themselves, you know? Being able to attune, yeah, to the people around us.
And I always say this like if dogs are can read our body language, then humans should be able to read each other's body language. And that the skill of like just taking the time. And I think this is like I'm in the process of preparing for this podcast, got very interested in like where why we shut this sensitivity down so much. And like I know that many people who define themselves as like empaths, for example, you can get rocked by the people around you, even when you are doing totally fine. A sad song comes on the radio. You see a couple in the corner at a party having a fight, and like you can get totally emotionally swung around by this. And so there's this sense that, like, oh, if I wall myself off, if I shut down the sensitivity, I'll be safer, but it just means you're ignoring what you feel. It doesn't mean you've developed the tools to, like, manage. I don't know if that's a good word, but, like, do something productive with what you feel.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I wanna throw in there, it makes me think, if you grew up in a household where there was perhaps volatility or chaos around you, you could have developed 2 strategies to find safety within that. Either way, you're gonna be hypersensitive, but
Yeah.
one, you could just present as totally aloof and unaware, and that was the safest strategy to
Mm.
survive that threatening environment. Or you could have learned to become hypersensitive and manage the people around you, or the environment around you, to control that in some way to then have a sense of safety in that environment.
Mhm.
Just sort of like 2 examples of maybe seemingly opposing,
Yeah.
strategies
Yeah, it's like
that.
the hypervigilance
Yeah. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
yeah, being like I know that I've worked with this a lot, like, that couple in the corner having a fight doesn't mean I'm unsafe.
Y yeah. And if as a child, the couple in the corner being perhaps your parents or your caregivers did mean you were potentially unsafe, if that still lives within you, no amount of telling yourself, "I'm safe, it's okay," is gonna change that because somatically in your body, it's still living that experience. And so finding someone to work with or finding different ways, there's many different modalities,
Mhm.
cough, cough, embodiment, somatics, to heal that in some way
Totally.
will then allow you to be able to hold your ground and your center and your sense of safety, belonging, and dignity while that couple in the corner is fighting.
Yeah, and we're gonna get into, like, different ways you can, like, kind of build your capacity, so, like, feeling grounded and centered amidst your sensitivity, but I also wanna touch on, just so we don't skip over it, like, emotional sensitivity and why it's so necessary in life, because I think a lot of people and I've thought this myself as a pretty emotionally sensitive person, like, "Ugh, it would just be easier if I was less sensitive." It would be easier if I felt less, if the intensity of things was smaller.
Yes.
And, like, for I can understand why, we could learn the lesson as kids that if we have intense sensitivity that our caregivers, our parents, our teachers, like, might be like, "I need you to settle down and, like, not have a big reaction in this moment because you are disturbing the peace in some way." Um, but what I think happens is, again, we don't actually just turn down our sensitivity, we repress it, and especially in the case of, like, big emotions, is they just leak out sideways. And, like, the best, way of describing that is I've heard it called this is so weird, I've heard it called donkey smuggling. I don't know where that term came from. I think emotional smuggling works better, but, like, where you get super upset. She's laughing about some donkey smuggling. Anyway, I swear I heard it on a podcast once. Blame the podcasts. Um, sh where, like, you get super upset about things that actually aren't that big of a deal because, like, you have been denying and repressing a emotional reaction to something else, and these emotions don't go away. They just come out at inopportune, unfortunate moments.
Oh, yes, and I feel like if anyone here is listening and you're someone who, I don't know, represses anger, for example, you've probably had that experience where you blew up at some point, and
Yeah.
that is, like, that e direct example of your body's gonna keep holding on to whatever you've repressed, but that pressure's gonna build, and that pressure's gonna build, and at some point, it has to come out. If it doesn't come out in that explosion, it is gonna end up affecting your body physically.
Yeah.
Oh, we do have to do that podcast at some point. Okay, okay.
We will. We'll definitely get to the idiopathic. Maybe when you're out here.
That sounds lovely.
Yeah. And that made me think also, I think I've experienced, and I'm sure other people have too, where like the emotional energy that I'm not finding healthy outlets for. And we've done an entire podcast about this. We talked about how like big emotions aren't the enemy and how to move emotional energy. It's podcast number 2. Go find it. But lost my train of thought. Okay. Um, but like the energy, if it doesn't find a way out, it will circulate inside of yourself, and, like, my anxiety, I am pretty sure was, like, a vortex of unexpressed emotion whipping around inside of me because I just kept telling myself, "You're fine. Everything's fine. You're being dramatic. You're being too sensitive. Stop feeling that," and just, like, and, like, putting Fort Knox on top of my emotional expression, and all it did was make me crazy.
That's exactly it. It's like, it's gonna be there, and we're gonna feel it, and it's gonna be felt in different ways, and it's
Yeah.
gonna make us
Yeah, and but now I've, like it's both cool and wild. I feel like the princess and the pea, like, I've gotten to this point where I have so fine-tuned my emotional sensitivity, I can see when, like, something super small, like the way that literally, the way that my cat swooshed her tail, it didn't seem right. It I feel anxious. And now I can, like because I can pinpoint it and be like, "Oh, that was the moment," I can go and I can, like, have a conversation with Anna about how I'm anxious about my cat, or I can do something with it instead of just walking around carrying this anxiety that I have no idea where it comes from, which I think is maybe the most, like, crazy inducing part of emotions when you're like, "Where did it come from? Why do I feel this way?" And when you develop that emotional sensitivity and you're like, "Oh, it was from that little thing," then you can, like, work with it instead of it just being this mystery.
Ugh, yes. Game changer.
Yeah, game changer. Um, so, then we wanna talk about, like, how to build this capacity because if what am I saying? If sensitivity isn't something we want to get rid of, in fact, if it's something we want to cultivate in ourselves, how do we both hold that sensitivity and not get just like whipped around by what we're feeling? And this was the part of me doing a solo podcast that I was like, oh, fuck, I need Anna.
Somatic practices.
Yeah. Nervous system regulation.
I love it. Well, I mean, first and foremost, we need to build awareness of what's going on in our own bodies in
Mhm.
really basic foundational ways. And so
Mhm.
we also did a podcast on this. I am not as good at Leo at remembering exactly which one, but it was about somatics and somatic practices. And
We'll put a link
we
in the
go over
description.
exactly. And we go over some basic somatic practices, but grounding practices. Perhaps we did orienting, self contact.
Mhm.
And first and foremost, we need to start building that relationship to sensitivity again. And so,
Mhm.
especially if your go to is to not feel, is to numb out, is to say, I don't know, um, that's a big place to start is okay, what
Mhm.
is going on? So much check in, in my
Mhm.
body. I'm noticing pressure on my sit bones and I'm experiencing excitement. Um, that builds, yes.
And I wanted to say that, like, this just dawned on me. The fact that it's a little boring, don't be offended, but the fact that, like
It's boring. That's something I tell clients from the get-go, like, "I'm gonna give you some practices, and you do them for the next, like, I don't know, 5 weeks, and they're probably gonna feel really boring, and that's okay."
yeah, and
Like,
I
that's
would say,
expected.
like, that's even the point because, like, you are getting in contact with your sensitivity without an ounce of intensity of, like, "Oh, this is so chill. This is so chill. I am bored." Yes, that's what we want.
And in our, like, dopamine-driven world where we're needing excitement and a hit for something to be worth it, this is also a really important practice, right? Like,
Mhm.
being alive is also just about feeling the sensations of being alive, the sensation of gravity on my body, sensation of my hand on my heart, of breath expanding my belly, of
Mhm.
receiving these 5 senses in their most basic foundational ways.
Mhm.
Okay, so first and foremost, yeah, that these we w we need to have a baseline foundation of what's my emotional state and what are the sensory inputs that I'm receiving.
Mhm.
And then from there, depending on the state of your nervous system, and that's like a really big asterisk, uh, we can do lots of different practices to start to build that capacity for discomfort.
Mhm.
Um, and so I think a really basic one that, again, some people might look at and be like, what? That is so boring. That's also not discomfort. But if we're looking at discomfort from like level 1 to 10, if you were to just like stand on a foot and let your 1 foot and let yourself go slightly off balance and then feel your body come back to center, being off balance is discomfort in a way. Level 1, but still discomfort, right? It's
Mhm.
so being aware of that sensation, your body feeling that perhaps like line of tension that goes up one side of your body as you're leaning to the side, and then the line of tension that responds to bring you back to center, that change in pressure on your foot as you go to one side and then back to center. Building awareness of like your body's self-righting mechanisms, your body's ability to go out of equilibrium and come back, to go out
Mm.
of balance and find its center again, to be uncomfortable, level 1, and find center again. And to notice that in that discomfort, in that out of balance, I was still safe. I still
Mhm.
belong. I still have
Mhm.
worth.
Yeah.
Um, and then there's lots of levels up from there, all the way toward the hot fad of cold plunges. And
I had no idea
not
where you're
hot,
going with
very
hot
cold.
fat. I was like, on
Oh
okay.
god, what's on I about to say? Um, yeah, the hot but actually very cold fad of cold plunges. And, that's a great example of being able to if your nervous system really experiencing a much higher level of discomfort and actually one that is life-threatening, right? If you stayed in there,
Yeah.
you'd die.
Mhm.
Um, I do wanna, like, throw really 2 caveats on that. If you're anyone with a diagnosed heart condition, cold plunges are not indicated, and if you're someone who has a lot of dysregulation in your nervous system, also not indicated. Like, this
Mhm.
is too intense of an experience for a nervous system that's already overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of people pushing cold plunges on people who should not be doing cold plunges,
Yeah.
and should not start with level 9 experiences,
And, like,
should start
the ice cold plunges are fucked
yeah,
up.
that's what I'm thinking of,
I
or
don't
like
do
the
those.
people yeah, in the ice
Absolutely
bath.
not. Like, what I my cold plunge is, like, I turn the shower to, like, kinda cold. And I breathe slowly. This is actually a cold plunge technique that I use for, like, my moderately cold shower. The slow exhale through pursed lips.
Ooh.
Just that, and I use that now all the time. I also do a lot of, purification lodges and EPs, and, like, when I'm much better at handling heat than I am at handling cold, but it still gets, like for a moment, I'm like, "Is this too much intensity for me? Is this too much sensation?" And just and this is a, like, anyone can use this if you're trying to just breathe through an uncomfortable moment without trying to fight, flee, or fix it. Um, just a slow exhale through pursed lips, and all you have to do in that moment is exhale and just, like, be with
Love
what
that.
is in the exhale. And I apply this to difficult conversations. I apply this in so many moments. I'm okay where I am. at least for the next 3 seconds, and then if I want to leave after those 3 seconds, I can.
Mm, and I wanna say too, like, if you're doing that slow it's like such a powerful practice, be present with the sensation in your body. If you're slow
Mhm.
exhaling, but you're like awareness is on the anxious spiral in your mind, it's gonna be much less effective than if you're slow exhaling and you're feeling your belly as your belly button goes back to your spine. You're feeling your chest, that sensation of air against your lips as it blows out. Like, be
Mhm.
present with the sensory experience in your body with that slow exhale.
Totally. I love that. And I found so, like, so I started or I tried to record this podcast like 3 weeks ago on my own, and so I've been thinking about this topic since then and noticing, like, oh, I have pretty high capacity for emotional discomfort in myself. I have, like, incredibly, I would say, high capacity for emotional discomfort in myself. I might seek it out, but emotional discomfort in others and, like, that interpersonal sensitivity, oh my god, it's like an ice bath. I hate it. I hate feeling other people uncomfortable, which is why I, like, jump in to fix and to rescue and to people please, because I am much more comfortable feeling discomfort within myself than I am feeling discomfort within others, and so it's just really fascinating to notice, like, the different we'll all have different levels of capacity for different types of sensitivity, and that's
That's
beautiful.
true.
And
Yeah.
we just try to not run away screaming when something feels uncomfortable. Anna, I'm wondering if there's, like, any like, in your trauma-informed knowledge, when people are coming up on an edge that they shouldn't try to breathe through, but they should just remove themselves from, like, when they are being actually triggered in, like, the traumatic sense of the word. Not to put you on
Um,
the spot.
yeah, that's I mean, that is a tricky one. So a big part of this and like a part of my program as well is teaching people to track their own nervous systems because it is really unique to each person. There's not like a
Mhm,
one size fits all thing I can say right now. Um, as far as like what's the indicator that this is too much?
mhm,
Um, but I guess I think one thing I can say across the board is we can look at sort of like heightened levels of activation where I can go into a people pleaser response. That's like known as a fawn response. That's that first indicator that I'm feeling unsafe in some way.
mhm,
Um, that's an okay edge. That's like a
mhm,
not super heightened response. The next more heightened would be the flight response. I want to run away from this conversation. I want to leave this scenario. My feet start pattering. Um, there's lots of different indicators I'm in a flight response. A fight response could be more of a fix it response, could be more of a I need to like it's a do response of like trying to pull yourself away from the context. It's about moving toward the context in some
mhm,
way. Again, like this is depending on your nervous system, like an okay place to be, to work with if you have capacity. But when you then enter what's considered like more of a freeze response, that numbness comes in, the shutdown comes
mhm,
in. That's like an absolute back away, stop, remove yourself, ground, breathe. Like that's not an edge of
mhm,
discomfort that's safe to lean into. That is your system is fully overwhelmed and it's shutting down.
mhm.
Um, but yeah, there's all these big there's a lot of nuance in learning to track your nervous system and the indicators and getting to know, like, what is your safe edge, what's
Mhm.
comfortable, what's challenging, and
Mhm.
what's too much. And learning that edge between, like, this is challenging, but I still have a sense of centered and groundedness,
Yeah,
and this is too much. I've lost my sense of center and ground. Like, that's that edge
yeah.
where you have to learn for yourself what's going on there. That's maybe a
Mhm.
better explanation than my whole fawn, flight, fight, freeze
I like
explanation.
both.
That That difference between, like, this is challenging, but I'm still connected to self. I still have a sense of curiosity. I still have access to playfulness. I still have access to
Mhm,
creativity. I still have access to who I am, to my values, to my ability to respond instead of react. Like, there's
mhm,
this whole zone where it's a challenging zone. I'm being challenged. There is discomfort, but I'm still connected to those things. And then there's a line, and then I start to things. And that's where, okay, I've gone too far. It's time to pull back. I'm no
mhm.
longer at a safe, healthy edge. I'm in a fight or flight response that's unhealthy.
Totally.
That's not productive.
Yeah.
Maybe not unhealthy is not the right word, but that's not productive.
Yeah, yeah, and, I feel like, maybe for because even, even the ability to know, like, "Oh, I'm still grounded in self," like, requires a level of sensitivity, and
Yeah. Yeah. And like
like
that's those first steps of like somatic practices. Like, what does
yeah,
it mean to feel grounded? What does it mean to feel oriented in my surroundings? What does it mean to have a connection to self? Like, if
yeah,
we don't have that foundation, then we can't know what that edge is.
totally, and that's why, again, it's so important because, like, to cultivate the sensitivity, because otherwise, like, your reactions will truly feel not only out of your control, but, like, totally unpredictable because you won't see that edge coming, like, like, your nervous system's edge that is marching towards you, you won't see coming, and suddenly you are fully lost in a trigger, and, like, your most primal nervous system is making the choices and, like, shutting you down, whatever, and it helps so much to be like, "Ooh, this is challenging. Oh, this is very challenging. Oh, mayday," like backing away.
Too much. Yeah.
Too much. And it reminds me, in like a kind of intellectual sense, if people want a mental model to help think about it, like there's a comfort zone, right? And then right past the comfort zone is the learning zone. And you learn really well here. You don't learn anything in your comfort zone because you already know everything there. But right past it, a little bit bigger, you learn very quickly. You're very quickly to adapt. But past the learning zone, it's like Anna says, too much, too fast, soon, and you're not actually learning yourself or not actually learning. You're just it's so challenging that, like, you go into a sense of dysregulation. So, you
Right.
can
You're
just sit
reacting. We can't learn while we're reacting.
Yeah, and if anything, you are just actually your body is learning. If you jump from comfort zone to, like, too big, too fast, too soon. We can call it the, like, reaction zone maybe. Your body is learning anything outside of your comfort zone is not safe. So it's
Yeah.
so important here to, like, comfort zone, okay, I see it. What is one step outside of my comfort zone? And how can I practice holding groundedness, having capacity to hold my sensitivity in my learning zone? Because that is where you teach your body, ooh, I can have these hard conversations. I can work beyond people pleasing. I can sit in this slightly cold shower without feeling like my survival is on the line.
Yeah. 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 And that makes me think like, okay, so in order to have that comfort zone and that learning zone, and I think like Leon is using the word learning and I was using the word challenge, but it's that same concentric circle.
Mhm,
That next circle out is like where challenge and learning overlap.
mhm,
Um, in order to have a challenge zone that's then followed by like a reactive unsafe zone, we need to have a comfort zone. We need to
mhm,
have a sense of safety, belonging, and dignity. And so that's also an
mhm,
indicator of where to start, where you are on this journey. If you can say, I, for the large part, I feel safe. I feel
mhm,
like I belong. I feel like I'm worthy. Then you have a certain level of capacity in your system. And so you can start to grow into that learning and challenge zone.
mhm,
If you can't say if you say, I feel unsafe. I feel unwelcome. I feel worthy. Okay, then that's your place to start. It's not time to challenge yourself yet. It's time to
yeah,
reestablish that foundation. And I
mhm.
do wanna say to anyone that lives in our current world, all of us in different ways feel unsafe, feel unwelcome, feel unworthy because
Mhm.
of the world we live in. And
Mhm.
it's a valid and reasonable response to feel unsafe, to feel
Mhm.
unworthy, feel unwelcome, because the world is literally, in some ways, the environment we live in, depending on the body you live in, makes it unsafe for you, makes it unwelcoming to you, makes it undignified.
Mhm.
Yeah, wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, I love that. And that's like, I would say the core of our somatics and embodiment work for Anna and I from these different angles is like to find the one safe place that we know we can always return to, which is our bodies. And those like boring somatic practices are finding that sense of safety, belonging, and worthiness in our own skin. And so you always at least have that to return to.
And if your body doesn't feel like a safe place, and for many people it doesn't, um, one of the things I like to say is, like, is your pink does it feel safe to be in your pinky? Or
Mm,
maybe like the side of your foot? Is that a safe place? Does it feel safe to be just in like the palm of your hand? Is
mm,
that a safe place? Because there's a lot of, what's going on in here in this trunk. There's a lot of potential trauma being held there, and so it may not feel safe. But is there somewhere that does feel safe? And if not, is there a sound that feels safe? Is there a
mm,
song that feels safe? Is there a type of touch that feels safe? Is there a landscape that feels safe? And finding your starting place and experiencing that over and over. That's your practice.
mhm. And that's not too small. I can say that both Anna and I started there
Yeah,
big time.
absolutely. Yeah.
Um, all right. Is there anything else you want to add into this convo?
Yeah, there was something that was written in here that I really loved that we don't have to get into now, but it's also a topic that I want to talk about later, at some point. But emotional sensitivity as a gateway to authentic connection.
Mm,
And so if we're wanting intimacy, closeness with another human, we're wanting authentic connection with another human, we have to be aware of what's going on inside of us to then be able to express that, to then be witnessed and seen in that experience and to have that closeness with another. And so this
mm.
is also a gateway to a depth of connection with someone else and not just ourselves. And
Oh,
that's beautiful, powerful, and like, oh, that makes me wanna sing and dance and yell.
I love that. I love that so much. I was looking through the notes too, and like the part that stuck out to me is like the flip side of the coin of this, which is um, empathy and like the empaths among us um, being able to feel what somebody else is feeling without immediately needing to fix it. And both those are 2 sides of the exact same coin for, like, this intimacy that we crave, to be able to express the truth of our hearts to our loved ones, and they're just like, "I'm so here with you, and I don't need you to feel any differently. I am just here with you, feeling exactly what you're feeling and loving you through it." And neither of those things can happen without us having the sensitivity to be able to express and share how we're feeling, and the other person to be able to meet it without needing to change it.
Yeah, yeah. Right, so
Oh,
that's 2 whole sovereign beings fully in touch with how they're feeling and how someone else could be feeling, and they're grounded and centered, and then they can meet each other in a way that's just divine.
y
Beautiful.
yeah, literally. Oh, I love that. I love that as, like, a juicy ending for, like, this is
Yes.
why sensitivity is so worth it. Don't run away from it.
Ah, yes. Thank you, Leona.
Yeah, thank you, love. It's been really good to be here with you.
Yeah, likewise.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you on the next one.